Hey everyone, Dan with Mac Rumors, and in this video we're going to take a look at the new LG G7 ThinQ's camera and compare it to the dual camera system found on the iPhone X. Now before we take a look at certain features and sample photos, let's take a quick look at the cameras themselves. The LG G7 has a dual camera system on the back and both cameras are 16 megapixels. The interesting thing about this dual camera setup is that aside from your standard lens, you also get a super wide angle lens as opposed to a telephoto lens. This is useful for me because I find myself backing up more when taking photos as opposed to using the telephoto lens or digital zoom options. I usually just move closer to the subject if possible. With the wide angle, family photos or landscapes are much easier to capture. Now in terms of software, the LG G7 has no shortage of features. Whether or not you'll use them is one thing, but they are here if you need them. You get options like full manual control for photo and videos, cine video, food, slow motion, panorama, and an option called Flash Jump Cut, which is a way to make animated GIFs out of your photos. The manual modes are really nice, especially the video portion of the G7. Being able to manually adjust exposure and focus is a really nice option to have if you are serious in stepping up your photo or video game. Now the iPhone X does not have this feature built in, however a few months back we did highlight ways to achieve a manual-like experience when taking photos via a third-party application. I'll leave that link in the video description if you're interested in finding out more, but for LG to include this feature out of the box is always a plus. The rest of the features are probably not ones that average consumers would use on a regular basis, but there are two options that we haven't mentioned yet. Portrait mode, which can be found on most new smartphones these days, and a newer feature called AI camera that LG has introduced with the G7 lineup. AI camera will automatically analyze subjects in the frame and then provide recommendations on how to adjust your shot to best fit the scene and improve your pictures. So for example, back when we attended the G7 event, I was able to point the camera at certain subjects or scenes, and the phone was able to recognize the basket of fruit or the pool that was in the picture and adjust its settings accordingly. In this picture that I took recently, you can see the natural colors of the trees and the pond with AI turned off. Turning AI cam on, the camera recognized that this was a landscape scene and adjusted the sky and water to a cooler color temperature. I can see what the camera was trying to accomplish for this photo, but in my opinion, it just doesn't seem very natural and it didn't turn out that great. Portrait mode for the most part looked pretty good. I do like the ability to edit the photo afterwards to adjust the level of background blur. Overall, the camera does a pretty good job at detecting edges, as most smartphones these days do, but if you really zoom in, you'll notice some weird artifacts around the edges and corners. The iPhone X was able to do a better job overall, but that gap isn't as wide as one might think. In fact, in most aspects of this comparison, the iPhone X, in my opinion, was able to capture slightly better pictures and video over the LG G7, but that's not to take anything away from this camera. What sold it for me were the natural colors coming from the iPhone, and even though I tend to prefer a more saturated look from the G7, this time around I had to choose the iPhone X. When taking videos on the G7, the quality is of course fantastic, but the thing that stuck out to me the most is the stabilization. Compared to the iPhone X, and just by walking with the camera and slowly turning from right to left, the stabilization on the G7 felt a bit off to me. There's a lot more movement compared to the iPhone X, even though you'll see your fair share of jitters here. The G7 overall just didn't seem to stabilize the video as well as other phones that I have tested, including the iPhone X. Finally, here are some more pictures taken on the G7 and iPhone X. Let us know which camera you liked better, and if there are any other comparisons that you would like to see between the G7 and the iPhone X, let us know in the comment section down below. This has been Dan with Mac Rumors. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Hey everyone, Dan with Mac Rumors, and in this video we're going to take a look at the new LG G7 ThinQ's camera and compare it to the dual camera system found on the iPhone X. Now before we take a look at certain features and sample photos, let's take a quick look at the cameras themselves. The LG G7 has a dual camera system on the back and both cameras are 16 megapixels.